Hi everyone, it's Natasha Mott here from Raising the Vibes, and I'm super excited today because this today is a turning point for the Academy. And the reason it's a turning point is because I would like to announce that I have my first Raising the Vibes teacher teaching the curriculum of Raising the Vibes. So I am super excited. The great thing is that Stephanie has a wealth of background in different modalities, both Eastern and Western, and all sorts of kind of amazing knowledge and wisdom that she carries, and the Akashic records as well. So welcome, Stephanie. It's so good to have you. I can't tell you, I'm overjoyed. My heart is full. I'm super excited for you to be part of the whole philosophy of really being of service and sharing knowledge, because I think that is extremely powerful. So could you tell us just a little bit about your journey and what got you to where you are now? Just like an overall, I know there's a lot, but yeah.
That's a lot. Okay. So it started about 27 years ago. I had my daughter and had some really big health issues. And that kind of started my intellectual exploration of alternative modalities, because it was actually a chiropractor of all people who helped me out first, after it was a really traumatic birth and lots of things were wrong. And then it took quite a few years to reclaim my health. And it was through a lot of complementary modalities that just seemed to show up spontaneously that I was able to reclaim my health. And it wasn't anything that, the medical community did wrong or anything. It was just they didn't have the answers for what was presenting. And, now, it's 27 years on since I've had her, and I understand that I really had a hard time being grounded in my body to be the gateway for her to arrive. And so it really pushed up so much that I was carrying somatically inside of my body and energetically, and physically, as well as a lot of healing through the bloodlines in different dimensions. So it was just like an arrival, and it was yeah, it was a great catalyst for me to begin my active conscious journey. Interestingly enough, you know, when I started actively pursuing, like, healing modalities, like different energy modalities, a couple years later, and a holistic health practices program out of Canada College. I would, you always practice on family because they're the most readily available guinea pigs. And I remember my mom saying, when she saw how I was working on her energetically, that I had done that at 3 years old, when she was hemorrhaging and at home and alone and things like that. So I guess it was there all along. I don't remember any of that. I just know that, as my background is in healthcare. I was a nurse and I taught nursing, and there were things I would know and there were things I would do. And I always had great relationships with patients. And I realize now, with hindsight and all the knowledge I have now, that I was reading everybody, right? I was reading what was going on. And so, yeah, it's made for an interesting journey. I guess the biggest gateway, other than my daughter arriving, was about 25 years ago. In that holistic health practices program, I took an elective that was called, at that time, in native healing practices. It would be indigenous healing practices now. And that was an elective, and like, we were out on the land and we were doing ceremony, and I knew it inside of me. And so during that time, I remember asking the question, where do I belong? And that weekend, the elder who was in charge of us actually received my name and then adopted me into community. And then, I met Diane Hill, who's part of this community. And so, she's kind of my ceremonial mom. So that was what, just like, my world exploded. And that's where it became energy and spirit. And it was such an easy transition for me to step out of the paradigm that I knew and into this one, because it was so expansive. So, a lot of the formal institutions that I was part of, and had all those conditioned beliefs and blinders sometimes,
Yeah.
they really fell away really quick, and it was great. And so I did a 10-year apprenticeship with my elder, and it was just, what's great is I have a really quick mind, and I'm always trying to strategize, and I love books and lots of information, but that's only one aspect of me. So everything that I was doing with the elder, there were no books. And I can remember at one point asking her, "Isn't there a book for this?" And she said, "No." It's experiential. And so what that did is, as much as I'd like to say I was really graceful for all my time with her, I wasn't. I was still, chafing at the bit and looking for the knowledge. And the knowledge does come for me. It comes later. And sometimes it's several years later. And it's like, and then it just puts the pieces of the puzzle together. And what that allows me is, it allows me the chance to have integrated inside of myself, in my own model of reality. And that's what we need to do for each one of us. That's my philosophy. So um, I can share knowledge, I can hold up a model, I can, um, you know, help people tweak what they're looking for, and open worlds for them. But ultimately, it's, they have to create their own model of reality that works for them, and it'll change every day as they integrate new pieces of knowledge, right? Um, One of the things I used to tell my daughter was that when I know I'll be done here, when I've stopped learning, and there's always something new to learn.
I
So
know.
it's amazing. I'm always changing it up. So yeah, in the last 25 years, there have been, I've dabbled in a lot of things. I've manifested amazing experiences. I've worked at a metaphysical bookstore. I've created amazing colleagues and teachers. I've also had some regular day jobs. I work at a university right now, but what it's done is, every experience is an opportunity. And so now I know how to do what I do, but I do it really fast because I only have an appointment that's so long with this student. And are we doing it formally? No, but I'm accessing so much more information to help them with what they need. So yeah,
Absolutely. And I agree with you. The more we learn, the more we realize we don't know anything. And it
yeah,
just continues, right? But it must be
absolutely.
absolutely fascinating from having that very, very structured kind of like being a nurse to now layering things on top of that and going, okay, logically, I know how this works, how I've been taught, but that piece of the puzzle that, that is not taught at the moment, and I envision a world where both medicines work together because they need to work together. And whether there's one that's a preventative part of it, it kind of like helps our health system as well. But it's also kind of like you said, taking responsibility for our own healing, our own thoughts, our own processes, and all the rest of that, which is amazing.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, a lot of people have asked me over the years, and that, people get in polarity, and they're exploring, and that's okay, right? It's not good, bad, right, or wrong. It just is. And then usually, it always comes full circle, but it's a journey, right? And that's for people to integrate things. But I've had a lot of questions about, our current medical system and medicine, and the state, and of where it's at, and things like that. And it's not that it's wrong. It's
No,
absolutely correct. It's just the way I always frame it for people is that it's incomplete. It's part of a spectrum of health or wellness, whatever you want to call it, existence, it doesn't matter, but it inhabits a spectrum. And for me, everything I've learned, everything that I've been exposed to, it's all complementary. I mean, I can make it fit. And there is more and more research that comes out year after year, that's really new and cutting edge, that really supports that we really are we really are mind, body, spirit, and emotion, and we are bigger. What's fascinating for me right now is how consciousness is creeping in everywhere. Mindfulness is a hot ticket item now in some medical programs, and yeah, that it's just people are actually, it's been hard because the way science measures things up until now, it's been a very narrow ascribed methodology, right? It's limited methodologies, but as we're expanding, we're also expanding our ways of looking at things through the lens of science, which sometimes is through the lens of magic as well, right? It is that curiosity, it is that questioning, and they're so similar, and yet people from both camps will shy away from the terminology of the other. But for me, everything is, it's all integrated, it's all one. And so, I mean, theoretical physicists are looking at bringing consciousness into the model now. And when you look at it, and then you look at the Akashic records, and you look at our multidimensional aspects and everything, it's like, oh my gosh, this makes so much sense. And so, yeah, I'm excited for where we're heading. Do we have a lot of challenges on this planet and in this time and as a species? You bet you. But there is that really collective awakening and evolution happening. And I think it's not just a little creep. It is those quantum jumps are happening, and it's very uncomfortable for people because it is changing everything. And so, that's the other side of the coin, is you have to be willing to let go of so much that you hold as solid. So you have to be willing to just be in flow rather than as a fixed destination. And that was hard for me at times. And, I think I'm a little more graceful now. But yeah, everything is mutable, and you can't really control the outcome, but you can invite some amazing possibilities.
But that's the amazing thing about the younger generations, because they switch so quickly, right? So they embrace the change. If it makes sense, they'll try it, they'll move on through it, they'll it's amazing. So I think as a collective, we are getting a little bit better, but it's as older generation that we hold on to, it needs to look like this. But even for us, it's like it's changed so much. I mean, so for example, at school, you're told that, the sun rises in the east. Okay, that's how you know where east is, right? And when you reach out, it's kind of like wherever the sun rises is where east is, right? And then you move forward and you're like, no, the sun doesn't rise. It's the earth that revolves around the sun. So it's kind of like
Yeah.
we're constantly shifting our perceptions, which is awesome. Um, I'm so excited that you're bringing all your knowledge and wisdom and then layering, kind of like putting in the Akashic records. So how did you find the Akashic records kind of like fitting into all that you do? Because it's like I have a friend of mine that's very, very kind of like medical, and she tries to support me by understanding this. And I was like, okay, so, I usually say, if we're drawing a line, Reiki would be over here on the metaphysical aspect, and then the Akashic records would be all the way over here on the other side of the field. So how did you find the Akashic records and how it layers into what you do? And what inspired you to teach it is the next question after that.
Right. Well, getting back to that whole medical model, mine just keeps collapsing. And it's not even that it's layers anymore. It is a singular unit that's integrated, and it's very elegant.
Yes.
And so the more you can let go of that illusion of separation, and that everything is discrete and separate, the more bang for your buck you get with whatever modality you choose, whether it's medicine and it's just mind and body and integrating that, or whether you're going to add an energy modality like Reiki, or maybe you add the records in. So right now, I mean, I've always been channeling, and I knew that. I just always wasn't comfortable with the language.
Mhm.
And so what the records have done for me in formally acknowledging and integrating it, it creates some really great synergies in it's just allowing that elegance to show up. So, you know, I can have someone who's presenting with, it could start off, the conversation could start off with one word that they're struggling with, and then we just follow that energy. And so it could present as a memory, it could present as a thought that's been conditioned. It could be childhood trauma, because we do embody, we get overwhelmed a lot as kids. Our brains only have a certain structure, and we do thankfully grow into a very different brain structure as we mature, and so we don't become as overwhelmed and somatize things, like put things, hide them away inside of us, like we do as children, right, to get through things. But it could just be that it's time for something to release. And yet, because there is no separation, that's how we sometimes create like energy cysts or blockages. And it's not that, it's not just one thing. Sometimes it can be lifestyle, sometimes it can be genetics, sometimes it can be something in our records. It truly is what the records, working within the records opens up for me. And what I'm finding more and more that I use it is I go into the records and I'm doing everything in them. Now, like, you know, there could be, it's almost like these little tendrils of energy that are attached that just need to be released. And does it mean that the person that it's a done deal? No, usually you have to make changes in your life as well. And I think that's where sometimes people go to alternative practitioners and they get the immediate relief because the energy has shifted, or they go to a doctor, they get a new medication and the energy shifts. But if you're not going to change anything in how you're living your life on all levels, mind, body, spirit, emotion, nothing's going to change. You're going to be back to square one. So I think what this does is, because it's so multimodal, I'll look at it that way, is it creates that breathing space that you have a little more time to choose, right, and reflect. And I always give people a little bit of homework after anyway, and a few questions on if you'd like to continue to see this changes, how are you going to change your life? So, and oftentimes just that little tipping point is enough to propel people in a different way. They just needed somebody to walk with them for that time. And that's where I just see myself as a healing guide, right? People do their own healing because it's free will and it's their own choice. I'm just there to help guide them and to help create a little more space by releasing some of that constriction in whatever area we're looking at. And so for me, the records, it really provides that structure, that framework. But my embodied reality that I live is this is just all energy, right? And if you look at the artwork of Alex Gray in the Sacred Mirrors, he has you know, three pictures that I really like that just shows all of your energy, and then it brings it back and back and back, and it shows just the flow. You eventually become the flow. And so that really is what we are. That's our selfie.
Absolutely. Yes, we are. I totally agree with you. And I also agree that we facilitate the healing. So we can provide the space for that, and we can, you know, really set up the perfect environment for it, but it's not up to us to actually.
Absolutely.
I wish we had this magic wand, or do I? I don't know. We want to experience these things, right? And it's the other thing I find myself now going, you know, I'm so sorry you're going through this, but I'm like, but your soul is expanding through it. And this is exciting. If you really see it as an opportunity, how can we, you know, alleviate that? And I think that's what we do as well, is alleviate to be able to shift things through. So I've always seen myself as a facilitator of healing, like you say, a guide of healing, rather than a healer as such, because it actually makes me, and maybe that's perhaps work that I need to do, it takes a lot of responsibility to say I am a healer, because like, you know, that feels like, no, we're facilitating the healing. I am the healer of myself, right? Kind
Yeah.
of a thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And part of it for me is we're all healers. Every individual who's on this
Yeah.
planet carries gifts and the medicine that they are and that unique vibration. And you know, whether it's you know, early childhood experiences, trauma later in life, what they've chosen to come
Yes.
in with as their travel menu to this planet, you know, and what they wanted to learn and experience, whatever they come in.
Yeah, I think what Stephanie's talking about is really having that blueprint of what we've chosen, that menu, what we've chosen to experience while we're here. Absolutely. So that makes it very, very fascinating. And the great thing about that is accessing the records, you can actually have access to that menu, which sometimes by knowing why it is that we've created that, that allows us to actually move forward. So that makes it very, very fascinating. And it also makes us understand and a little bit more tolerable. And sometimes once we know what it is that we need to move forward on, is it helps us to just shift that mindset or see things from a different perspective. So my soul chose to experience this so that I can overcome it, heal it. So I'm healing it for me. I'm healing it for the 7 generations before, the 7 generations to come, the generations that are here, in order to help other people. I was just finishing off your thought process of the menu of coming in. It's okay. The technology has been not my friend recently. So it's all
Yeah.
good. It's all good. So how did you find going through like the few different modules?
Yeah. So a lot of, you know, I'm really grateful that we got connected in this past year and
Mhm.
that for whatever reason, it was like, yes, I'm going to jump in and I'm going to, you know, take a few of the modules. And a lot of it was really familiar, but what it did is it just tied off so many loose ends for me in some ways and gave me a lot more language about it and really called me out. But what I really loved about the way you delivered the content was the embodiment aspect. Is you have created, even though we were on Zoom because we're in the pandemic,
Yes.
it was an experiential journey and it was a healing journey, and there was so much expansion and space held for that. So it's not, you're not just delivering knowledge, you're delivering so many possibilities for people to step more into themselves through that experiential process. And that is really in alignment with how I like to engage with people. So I was really excited when we had the conversation and you offered this opportunity for me, because you teach the way everything just makes so much sense to me. So it was great to find you, to find the community to land with as well, because you know, a lot of the conversations are happening, but there's also that othering, right? It's a us and them. And what I'm finding in our community is it's inclusive. We're still holding space for everybody to show up wherever they're at on their journey, and even those that aren't, right? To have that compassion that, you know, and hold that space that they create those opportunities for themselves to continue to expand and evolve and grow, because we're kind of all in this one together.
Absolutely. And then we start looking that we are really all one, really. But
Yeah,
and we're just different versions of each other, which is fascinating. And I
yeah,
found that working within the records, it actually gives you a curiosity for why people have chosen their paths rather than a judgment. So it's kind of like, oh, you've undertaken this. Okay, that's incredible. And then there's a total respect for that, which is why we need to hold that space. I was super excited as well because we're very similar. And I think in many ways, and I thought that you like, I was super excited because I'm like, you're going to hold the integrity of the courses, because I take my work, the Akashic work, and any spiritual work is for me is very, very sacred, because as spiritual teachers, we have that responsibility of the knowledge that we're sharing, or to at least provide the most up-to-date that we're aware of, but also allow for the expansion of everybody else. And I saw that. I was like, yeah, I'm a no rules kind of person, because I've tested all of them. And even when I do say, okay, before we start everything, there's a process. And I found that even though I tested the process, this is the process that, at least for me, has set me up for success. So it's kind of like, so here's the foundation, but feel free to color outside the lines, because that's where we learn, right? And I find, yeah, and that's important for me as well. And also saying, okay, yeah, let's look at that perspective. Or maybe, yeah, there's something else out there that is there. But providing that knowledge up to now is where we're at, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. And it's always, when somebody else arrives, they bring another vibration, right? They attune the whole group with their curiosities and what, because they're opening up the space, not because they have the answers, but because they're asking the questions. And I think sometimes that's what we don't do enough, is we don't ask the questions enough. And so I really, it is, everybody tailors it to themselves. And it's being open to anything, but doing it with integrity. That's the part. And that's where, um, you're going forth with good intentions, like that you're very aware of your responsibility, because this, it's not that we have, you know, like power. We all have power on the planet,
Absolutely.
but there is, with that awareness and that ability to connect and engage, there is a lot of responsibility that comes with it. So yeah.
Absolutely. So I was super excited, because I was like, yes, I can, because we do, it's trying to bring this. And I realized through doing my own Akashic work, because we're constantly looking at, well, what is going on? And a big part of it was, it's part of my purpose to make the Akashic records accessible to all people, but in a way that it's kind of like, that it's like you say, that it's inclusive, that it holds like all sorts of, I'm going to give you an example. So I was working in at Six Nations, and I was teaching, and one of the, especially in the Akashic foundations, one of the suggestions is to not use alcohol.
Yeah.
Like, do not consume alcohol, lowers your vibration. But it's like, all that means is you'll access the records at the vibrational frequency that you're at. But then when I was there, somebody had posted the question, like, why not alcohol? And I was like, well, it drops your vibe. And then I was like, wait a minute, just by posing that question, it's like, but maybe you're using alcohol for ceremony. I put alcohol in the fire cleanses that I put in there, kind of a thing. So yeah, of course it does. It absolutely makes sense if you're wanting to do it. It just kind of like, yeah, it just brings a difference in there. And I was like, oh, thank you, because I don't like restrictions. I don't like conformity. And we are being conditioned to think so linearly. So that's why I say, question everything, question all your teachers, question me, because if I don't know, I will learn, or it will actually help me to check in that information. Is this still valid? So that was a very, very good question. Again, not to go out and get absolutely kind of like impaired and connect to the records. I still wouldn't recommend that.
Yeah.
But if you are doing ceremony where you do need alcohol to be involved, you have a little bit of an awareness of how to integrate within the records. It's not a hardcore no, kind of a thing.
Yeah, it's always the intention behind it,
Yeah.
right? And it's not intention about the manipulation aspect of
No,
it. It's intention, the vibration, the frequency that it's coming from within you. And I mean, yeah, alcohol is a great you know, a great example. Is it, you know, is alcohol the intent to numb out,
Yeah,
medicate pain?
yeah,
Which sometimes that's really valid if that's
yeah,
all that somebody has because they have nothing else to cope with.
yeah,
But it really, you can't be present and you can't be in the records if that's what you're doing, you
yeah.
know, it, and because it becomes about discernment.
Mhm.
And if there is that in, you know, if you really did have a few too many and then decide, yeah, I'm going to read my records tonight, and then you decided to go in, where's,
Yeah,
there is, you know, we use it in our common language, impairment. So where then is the discernment in
yeah,
the information that you're getting? And, you know,
absolutely.
when you connect to those larger energies, you're connecting to everything. So sometimes other information comes in and it might not be in your best interest. So, you know,
Absolutely.
just
But
do
it
it
can be used in a different way, right? To reach a,
ceremonially, and
yeah,
it's the intention.
ceremonially.
Yeah,
I was like,
yeah,
yeah, wait, I need to correct that because that's too limiting, right? Into
yeah,
that aspect and explain it a little bit further.
yeah.
Very cool. So I'm super excited because you're looking at doing at least supporting with a few of the Akashic modules, the foundation, the divine dimensional healing, the purpose activation one as
Yeah,
well.
because those are pretty well my jam.
Those are
They've
your,
been what I've been doing for a long time, and facilitating with others. And you know, you've created such a beautiful framework with them, that will grow as the academy grows, right? And
absolutely.
you grow and I grow and everybody else. And so it's amazing. Yeah, and we'll see what else I cook up to maybe
You come up
co-create.
with. Yeah, I would love for you to share your other knowledge and wisdom as well. I'm super excited to see what you do with that. Okay, so what inspires you? Just in general, just to get to know a little bit more about you.
What inspires me? Oh my gosh, that's a hard one. We should have prepped for that one. No, I'm just kidding. What inspires me? I don't know. If I had to say if I was an artist and what was my medium, it would
Mhm.
be energy and people.
Okay.
So that's probably what keeps me going because it's my curiosity. I'm sure I've been a cat so many times. Like the curiosity of a cat, it's
Yes.
just, it's there, right? I'm always looking. And I do recognize in myself that I have this big capacity for caring and wanting to fix things.
Yeah.
And some of that I brought through, and some of that's from my earlier life, whenever I was younger. But I'll share, I guess, what I've always told Diane in our conversations, because I know there's an easier way
Mhm.
for us to move through things.
Yeah.
And that's becoming more and more evident.
Mhm.
The things that really have gotten in my way is my own resistance and my own dragging my feet. And, you know, it's going to, all those lessons come again and again and again until you decide to finally live the experience that you've signed up for. And uh, what I'm really finding for myself and in conversation with others is that a lot of the pain and suffering that we create is in the resistance,
Yeah.
not in the stuff that happens. Um, there are some really hard things that we have to navigate as humans here on the planet. And sometimes we compound um, the suffering that goes on with it
Yeah.
by our resistance to embodying and experiencing the whole process, and seeing where it lands us on the other side. So yeah.
Absolutely.
um
So if you could magic one thing away, would that would be what you would do? If you could magic one thing off the planet, what would it be?
the pandemic right now.
Yeah, I agree with
That's
that.
not a fair one. If I could magic one thing,
Yeah, if you could magic one thing that would solve a problem in the world, what would it be?
a lot of things just flew through my mind, and it's like, no, because you get a lot of lessons from those. Like it
From
was
that,
like
yeah,
this big
yeah, it's
conversation. I think part of it, if I could wave my wand, I would have us all grounded and connected to nature.
Okay. Yeah.
I think that is probably one of the biggest, that would just create a massive shift. We wouldn't be degrading our environment or each other, or we'd understand a little more about inclusivity and equity, and there wouldn't be the disparity and the power dynamics. Um, yeah, I think if we could be connected to the land, I think greed and I think a lot of illusions would really dissolve. And I think it's because we would be more in flow and embodied and bringing in all those awarenesses.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
that was a weird one. I wasn't expecting that, and that's cool.
Yeah. No,
Yeah,
it's good because it's like, yeah, absolutely. I totally, yeah, I agree.
yeah.
Connecting to nature, and those are a lot of the messages that we've been getting. Connect back to nature. You know, like the other day, I was talking to Maria, and I was like, okay, there's so much on the moon, about the moon rituals and all that. Like, we need to connect to the sun. And I was like, especially because she's Mayan, so it's like, okay, where is the book for how do I work with the sun? And she was like, there is no book. She was like, go sit outside, watch the cycles of the sun and see how it affects you. And I'm like, yes. But that's that impatience of like, so every morning I am out there with the sun, kind of a thing. But it's kind of like, where's the book? Why hasn't it been written? But we've got all the answers within us as well. And
Absolutely.
we've got access to the Akashic records. So it's like, okay, I'm going to download the information. It's like,
Yeah. And so as you're saying that, what comes to me is when you go sit outside, feel the radiance of the sun, like the heat, the radiation, that energy coming from the sun, and invite it into the marrow of your bones, into that matrix. And there is a lot of memory in there. And that just kind of, that image just popped in, and I know yesterday I was walking with a friend and I could feel it was cold and windy. We had sweaters on, but I could feel the sun beating on our backs. And so it's being conscious, right?
yep,
And intentional, um, and being clear. And so what I did was I invited in the sun, especially into, you know, that space between the solar plexus, the throat, and especially in the heart space,
yep,
right? And it's the back door. So that's a really sneaky spot to get into energetically with people. You can go in the back door. And so it was just filling myself up and just nurturing that light, that flame that I am, right? That essence, that energy, and just, yeah, okay, just tune me up here. Let's go. Right. But
absolutely.
it's an active process.
Absolutely it is. And and as I'm meditating in the morning, especially that little time, the first 30 minutes, it's incredible because you can look at the sun, helps to activate your intuition, all sorts of stuff. And I was sitting and I was like, oh, my neighbors must think I'm crazy. But I was like, okay, so I'm using the sun, and I was going, like, I actually dipped my head forward to clear my crown, using in that energy. And then I went through all the chakras, and like you say, it's behind us, like behind as well. So it's like, but that was going off intuition. That was kind of like really connecting with nature once again, kind of like, okay, how does this work? So yeah, it's yeah, I don't care what my neighbors think, but it is absolutely incredible. And that's right. And that's why the Academy of Consciousness is really that awareness, that embodied awareness of what is going on. Even if it's like our emotions, it's not physical, like, what is going on with my emotions? Why is that? What do I need? Like, bringing that awareness, what am I making this mean? What is the story behind it? Why have I been triggered? Why do I like certain things? Why don't I like other things? So it's yeah, I love it.
Yeah. And it is that embodiment, because if we let go of the censor, if we let go of our cultural conditioning, the modeled
Mhm.
behavior, and we could just show up
Yeah,
as ourselves and who we literally came through to be as we came out that birth canal, as we came through that doorway,
yeah,
um, we would move intuitively to heal ourselves. You might move a different way. You might get on the ground and do something and breathe into it and shift energy. You know, you might be attracted to something else, or you might make a sound, you might do some toning and bring something up out of your liver. Like there's just so many ways. And then, you know, you might get the clarity of, oh yeah, I'm going to go see that herbalist, or, ooh, I better go see the doctor because I think I might need a little bit of help with this. Or you might go see, you know, a massage therapist to help you release something that you couldn't get to, but you can feel is there. We're so, as much as we live in a physical world, we're so disconnected from our own space, our own internal space.
Because it hurts sometimes.
And this is the interface to my world. If I'm not in my body, it's, you know, I'm having a really different experience on this planet. So this is the gateway. This is the interface. And we didn't come with a user's manual, but we shouldn't have had to, but we've, you know, collectively kind of botched our own natural
Yeah.
computer programs. So we've got to update those a little.
Yeah, we thought we'd do it the hard way.
Yeah.
Okay, so what books are you reading at the moment, or what podcasts are you listening to? What are you
Oh
doing right
gosh. I actually turned back, and there's a lot of books, which I'm like, oh man, there's a lot of books.
now? What are you reading right now?
Okay, I'm really working with the breath. So it's a yellow book. I can't remember. I think it's Nestor that wrote it. It's on breath work and how we don't breathe correctly as a species right now.
Yeah.
And it's that one's more with the physiology. There is a bit of the science geek still in me.
Oh,
Yeah, I love Nassim Haramein and the Resonance organization, and he's the theoretical physicist that kind of talks about consciousness
nice.
in theoretical physics. So I love him. Um, hmm. I picked up the Palladian Initiation because there were a few things I had to reread. I found some old books that are about to be donated, but there's one, and that's the thing on the journey. It's not you learn something and you're done with it. There are levels of integration. And so that's why I don't question myself or anything like that. You know, there's always a mashup of everything. Like there's cooking, there's everything from aromatherapy to homeopathy to the presence process. What else is there? There's a little bit of Buddhist stuff going on.
Nice.
There's a couple of the Drunvalo Melchizedek, his name, you know, the whole heart matrix thing. I had some Pierce on the heart again. There's a lot of weird stuff too.
That's awesome. Oh, I love it. It sounds
So
very.
there's science and mysticism. And a lot of energy modalities, and I do read a lot of psychotherapy books and stuff like that, just because it helps people to understand that as much as we can do work in the records, sometimes you need to work through things with a therapist because you need to unpack it. And so for me, it's not one or the other.
No.
It's everybody collaborating together, and you can have a kind of, think about it, team approach as somebody has to work through something. So, you know, one of the little books I'm looking at now has to do with parts theory and how we create these aspects of ourselves when we're young to navigate hard things that are overwhelming and to survive. And as we age, they don't necessarily help us to thrive anymore. So how do you let go of those things, but do it with compassion, right? Rather than judgment. So it's about awareness, and self-compassion has been a big one, because I've been very exacting with myself.
Yes, we all tend to do that. We're our hardest critics, for sure.
Yeah, so I think that would be the other thing I'd try and if I had my way with the planet, I'd add that everybody's self-compassion
Yeah,
got flipped on.
that would be awesome.
Yeah, because that would really shift things a lot. Ooh, that makes me excited
Everything.
now.
Yeah, no, that's so cool. And I think that's one of the massive threads that carry throughout all the courses within the Akashic is the compassion, because once we understand, oh, wait a minute, okay, it's that having that grace, that compassion for ourselves to help shift through that for sure.
Yeah.
Okay, I have one last question. What do you do to raise your vibration? What are your favorite ways to raise your vibration?
Man, you're talking to somebody who's not disciplined. So it makes me really
Oh,
great to help people to try and figure out what works for them and to give them some of the cheats, because I've spent a lot of years trying to figure out how to do it without investing a lot of time. And part of that was not valuing myself.
yeah.
And that you know, it's just not the way we're raised in society
Yeah.
to self-care. So
So
how
how
to
do
raise my
you,
vibration? My best one is to be outside. Right now, where I live, there are thousands and thousands, probably millions of cedar trees. And so for me, that's amazing medicine. It's for me, it's the energy of transmutation. So I'll go, you know, whether I'm out on a trail or I'm even in the neighborhoods and I'm touching the trees and I'm saying hello. And, you know, I'm the cat whisperer. They all come and say hello or, you know, stuff like that. But for me, it's being out in nature. Going to sit by the water is great. I love the interplay of, you know, the water and the reflected light. It does something
Mhm.
so restorative inside of me. And you breathe differently. You just breathe differently, you know. I mean, and then there's the whole thing about the grounding and the ions and all the rest. But it's about inviting flow. But I'm always changing it up too,
Yeah.
right? So I've circled back to nature. But for a while it was, you know, Nia. I was doing that, and I was really embodying a lot of flow, but differently, and releasing through dance and movement. And it was like, and it made me realize just how restricted I had become over time. But breath work every day, even if it's not a huge practice, you just need to engage it. You just need to land for a few minutes deeply, and it just, there's a residual effect. I don't know how else to say it, right?
Absolutely.
And you ground deeper. Um, and I think the biggest thing people need to do is check in with themselves.
Yeah.
There's people are so pulled externally.
Mhm.
It's those conversations you have with yourself where you allow space for yourself to be witnessed, even to yourself. And I know that sounds like, oh man,
Yeah.
she's talking to herself, but it's, we default so much to the world outside of us, and yet all the answers and all of the gateways are inside. You know, it's sourced from within. You know, we
Absolutely.
aren't just this, we're connected to
Multidimensional.
all. But that's where you go, right? You have people that are traveling all over the world and taking course after course, and they're just navigating it from the intellect and through these eyes. And they're going to keep searching. And I mean, we have everything that we need, and it's right here.
Absolutely. I totally agree.
Yeah.
Well, I'm super excited that you've joined our team, and I can't wait for you to share your knowledge and wisdom with everyone. We will post up your next courses. You do have a space specifically for you on the website as well, with all that you're offering within Raising the Vibes and all that you're offering on your own as well. So that is absolutely wonderful. I'm super chuffed. Can't wait to jump in on one of your classes. And yeah, we'll let everybody know when you're teaching. And I'm so grateful for you. Thank you so much for joining. And I love how we've put this in our contract somewhere. I'm
I'm,
glad that we created that.
I'm grateful for the opportunity. Thanks so much, Natasha. It's like, yeah, it's landing and it's everything I could have wanted. So
Absolutely.
thank you.
Excellent. I can't wait for people to actually meet you in a Zoom room or in person. I'll see you soon. Thank
Okay.
you. Bye.
Bye.